Welcome back to part 2 of our K27 RailPro installation. Quick summary of what we've done today. We got our power for the battery going into our power switch. Then we got our umbilical cord, like what we like to call it, from the RailPro board. And then it divvies up to our actual existing wiring from Bachmann Spectrum. So all these lines that were here, we're just repurposing them, and we're reusing the jack, so that way everything looks as it was intended when the train goes down the tracks later on, when this customer enjoys their new train. So we have our light, tail light, tied in with the blue, and then we have one of the power leads going towards that. The other power lead is going into our umbilical to go to the front, because we're going to use that power for the engine lights. And that pretty much sums up everything else here. We got a power jack here with a charging port, which is a pre-assembled unit. You can get it at RLD Hobbies or our website as well. Then we're going to put this thing back together. It's pretty simple and straightforward. And as you can see here, this is just a gigantic shell, if you will. So once we're down on there, we're going to put the screws on first. We just want to make sure that everything lines up and there's not pinching any wires, because that will be an issue later on down the road for us. There we go. There. Now we're all the way on. These screws are pretty tiny, so you don't want to force them in any way. When you put them in, you need to just be sure that you're lining it up with the holes, because they'll strip out very easily. I hope I didn't drop that one down in there on the wrong spot, but we'll find out here in a second. And you'll feel it grab when you get it in the hole. I'm not sure if these wires grabbed or not. There we go. Okay. And this literally just sets right down on in there. We're still waiting for our return tail light, so when that comes, we'll go ahead and install that. But as you can see, it's a very clean install. So everything's simple to the point. I'll show you on the camera here. So you can turn it on and off just by going like this, and then turn it all the way down to charge. So it's very clean, quick, accessible, makes it easy for the new owner. When you do pick it up, it's very important you always pick it up from here. The plastic, because they don't make these anymore, is very delicate. So if you pick it up like this, be mindful that eventually it will come apart. So the plastic was brittle, so you don't want to break them any further than they already are, because the plastic's already very delicate. So there you go. Okay, we're going to show you how to use the RailPro software, and by opening up, you'll already have it most likely downloaded the process. If you haven't done so, please download the RailPro app to your computer. Just double click that, should come right up on your desktop. And there's two rows of buttons that are on your first screen that pops up. The top screen, or the top row of buttons, is very easily explained. Those are pre-recorded sounds that you'll find already downloaded on the actual RailPro software, meaning that all your sounds for diesel and geared locomotives or steam locomotives are already preloaded there. So that's the preloaded stuff on the first row. The second row below that is your personal sounds that you've already downloaded before in the past, or sounds that you have personally created using the RailPro software or other software and uploading them through that process. So that's something to keep in mind, and it actually speeds you up in that process as well overall to get sounds to your locomotive. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the preloaded ones, and then we'll go into something else later on and get to that process. But for first of all, we'll start with the pre-recorded ones, and what we're going to do is sounds first of all. And that's sound. So we'll go click on the sound button on the first row. Go to Steam Engines and hit open on the right hand side of Steam Engines. Then we're going to go Steam Heavy LM-1 and hit add. Now you're automatically going to see that pop up on your right hand portion of the RailPro software. Now that means that that item has been taken from the computer or pre-stock sounds and is added to your list to download to your remote. So we're going to show you that process next. But that list on the right is showing you out of all the sounds that you're going to create and put onto your remote, that's what you can see on the right hand side. But what you see on the left is something that's preloaded already. The next sound that we're going to go to is you go back up to the sound button. It should be highlighted in green at this point. You click it again with your left button on your mouse, and then you'll see all the Steam or sound files come up right away. We want Steam Other. Boyer blowdown, you want to add that. This is a coal engine, so we're going to add that. Water fill, it's up to you, but we are not adding that to this engine. I'm going to go back up to sounds again, click it with your left button. Go to steam whistles again, or steam whistles next, I should say. Open. Now, this is a personal preference, whatever you prefer for your whistle to sound like. There's a lot of whistles on here. I like the big boy whistle. That doesn't necessarily pertain to this locomotive by no means. The Rio Grande is also a good one for this locomotive. Steam whistle, it can be used, but I think it sounds a little small for this locomotive. We're going to stick with the Rio Grande, I believe, is probably the best one for this locomotive. And then we'll go back to sounds and just see if there's anything else on there that we missed. I think there's the steam bell we missed. And this particular locomotive, I think we're going to go with the juniper bell. Challenger is okay. You can put both of them on there and see what you like. Steam bell is a common one. Now these bell sounds will take up memory on your card, so it's up to you how many you want to transfer to that process. But now we should have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items on our list to download. Now you had a cord that comes with your remote control using for charging. That same cord, you take the USB or the power port that goes into the wall, take that off of your cord, and you're left with the USB portion of the attachment of the wire. That wire can be used to be plugged into your computer and a USB port, and then the other end gets plugged into your remote. So let's go ahead and do that first. Once you get to that process done, you're going to power on your remote. Hit the home screen button. Hit Tools. Go into Software Update. And Software Update screen is shown, and it should have a gigantic rectangular box on the top that says USB, and it shows a picture of your handheld HC remote. Press to begin download. Now, after your cord is plugged into the remote, then you can press the button. Now, immediately the software on your screen will show white, and then it will show connected, USB connected with the remote and the computer. And then on the right, it'll have a little percentage over each of the sounds. And now that's allowing you to show or telling you how fast the download is being done and how long and how much longer it's going to take. Depending on how many sounds, this can be up to an hour long. I've seen it take as long as 3 hours long. The hard drive or the hard wire is probably the only way I can 90% of the time guarantee that the file is going to be transferred correctly. Every time you go wireless, you're taking a 50-50 chance of the sound transfer to being dropped or having an interfered sound or the sound having glitches in it. By having a hard line transfer, I hardly have any issues. But having wireless, I always have an issue. So I just wanted to throw that out there. It's done through, again, RF and a lot of things like Bluetooth, and it can throw radio interference, cell phones usage, anything that's by there. It could be even a gum, bubble gum wrapper can cause interference on RF signal. So that's something to be mindful of. Where you have a hard line, it's not working on anything RF, but a hard line transfer. So you're having a lot better. It might take longer, but you're having a lot better sound file that's being uploaded to your computer. So that process will be a while. So let's go ahead and dive back into our installation. Alrighty, so we're back here with the Locomotive, and we're about to dive into it, but I wanted to just touch on a few things really quickly. We have some standard stuff that we're going to be doing first, just to speed things along, which is our cab lights and our also headlight. Both things are very quickly to get done really fast, so we're going to do that first. And then we're going to start the disassembly of the engine in order to get to the motor mount and the wiring leads, and then finally the boiler lights. Now, for the smaller screws, I'm going to be using a smaller Phillips. These things are really, really annoying because the screws are so small. And anybody that's done this before will most likely agree with me on that one. But there's 4 in the front here, I believe. Oh, no, just 2. So then there's 2 there, and then 2 more in the back. And so these can be taken off pretty quickly. Again, they're super small. So be mindful of that if you need to use pliers, because you don't have a good grip, or like me, my fingers come apart fairly quickly here. So sometimes they get stuck in there too. So you can see just how tiny they are. So the reason why I like to do this one is because then I can put the cab back together and just take the cab off as a whole with the light already done in it. Makes my job a lot easier. If your screwdrivers are magnetic, that's also a plus in this situation. They're just so tiny. This is like closer to the hood, or the top of the cab here. And then one more. And I want to encourage you not to hold them. Put them in the tray as quick as possible. Okay, so now you can see how it comes right off. You can see in there, there's nothing a part of here except for the actual vent on the top of the hood. So it's pretty self-explanatory. There's only 4 screws that hold it on. Now we can see directly into the cab and see what we're working with here. The light that you can see coming up comes out of the boiler. You just pull that down, and I just stick it in there, because we'll pull it out later on when we take the train apart. Here we go. Now, it is entirely up to you again for the 100th time. If you want to use all the stock electronics, it is up to you. No problem there. It's definitely doable. This is a lot more work, as you can see. The reason why we do it at the shop is because if I do an installation, you can see how much time goes into each installation. And I ship the same train out to Australia, or I ship it to Germany or London, whoever knows, wherever. I want to make sure that it's going to go there and it's going to stay there. Once we do all of our electronics, everything has been that we stock here is spec'd out for RailPro or Blue Nami, and then it is switched out. So that means that everything that we have here is according to their specs. So depending on what installation we're doing, that is going to determine what lights and programs we're going to be using. So, or equipment. Anyways, I'll just do this part. Then all of our lights that we're using are warm glow. And the reason why is because, you know, back then they didn't have LED lights, so they weren't bright white. They didn't have any of that stuff. So what we want to try to do is stick to the realism as much as possible. And so with that in mind, when we do that, we know that it looks real when we're done. But we want to try to simulate what was done and how it was done back in the day. Okay. It's not going to let me put that in right now, and that's fine. We can put it in later. But at least our new light's in there. And that's pretty self-explanatory. You guys saw how we did that. So now we're going to work on the headlight. So for me, it's easier to roll this over so I can see the actual screws and the actual lights themselves. Now I already know I'm going to remove the class lights, which is attached to the back here of the front boiler bar here. I'm not sure of the name of this bar, but that's also attached to these class lights. That needs to come out in order to get your light off. Now you can see the front of the boiler here, or the back of the boiler. On the inside of the plastic fitting here, it's basically your switch housing that controls the train and the train's operation. Again, we're not using any of that, so we're going to take that apart. And again, we save all this stuff for whoever the next person is that wants to use these electronics. It's just courtesy. We want to keep people rolling with trains, not make their lives harder. So try to keep everything together for them. If you cut something, that's fine. Just tape it back together so that they know where it goes and what they're doing with it. Because we want the trains to keep rolling, not make things difficult. So now we have our lights. We're going to be using those again, so we'll keep those. Put them in our little tray here so I don't lose them. I'm going to grab a box so that way I could put all this stuff away. Oh, that's this one. That's that one. Okay. So, now this light, there you go. It's going to be a booger, I bet, because that last one was a booger. So, by sticking this inside, oh, good. Yay. Oh, bummer. I have to push this in. So let's just do this and hopefully speed it up. Okay, so we're going to save the housing, save the actual, but as far as the wires go, we're not going to be saving that part. So these can be cut here so that they have enough room to reattach. There you go, and then I usually just put a piece of tape there so that way they know what goes where. You don't have to, but I do. Just try to be nice so that way they can reattach them later on, if they so choose to. Some people use these trains and these systems for different trains, like Connie's, or what is the other one they use it for? I'm having a brain fart at the moment, but there are other systems that you can use this setup and the board for, because when they do mass productions of trains, they try to keep everything as similar as possible, because then it's cheaper for them to reproduce it. So even though it's a different train, it's still the same wiring in between the setups. So now, what I end up doing is I have to cut this part because I can't pull that through the whole boiler with the weight and everything else in there. So we're going to give enough of the leads on there so that you can do that later on. But then we're going to cheat, and I'm going to show you how. Then we got to tape that headlight on there too. Again, you don't have to do this, but I try to, so it helps people out next time around when they want to do their own system. Okay, so we're going to do the headlight next, so we can finish that aspect of it and it's done. Okay, so you start with smaller one, and then again the same thing with the warm glow light. So I'm doing a pre-hole, and I'm liking to stick it in from the back, and then that way it lets it looks like it's supposed to be there, but my drill bit's too small, so I'm going to get a different drill bit here. Maybe 1/8 of an inch. Let's see. I'm starting slow. I'm not doing like a lot of torque because the plastic is older. If you break them, not a big deal. We carry these here at the shop. They're reproduced, 3D printed, and I'll show you those in a little bit. Yeah, so maybe a little bit wider here. Being a booger. That's fine. It's always a bigger drill bit. You don't want to go too big though, because then once you do, you can't drill it out again. But if you mess it up, we have other ones here at the shop. You can find them on the website as well. Now you can see that there's this little prong sticking out of the back of the housing. So what we do is we stick our light bulb in there. Oops, here, this is a better way to do that. Teach you guys the right way. So by using these pliers, you can push it in. You see, so it snaps into place. That's what you want. Then you bend the wires down on either side of this prong. That prong is there so that it goes exactly the right depth of the housing of the light. So you stick it, holding your light housing, you stick the wires in first. You put them in the holes. That little prong allows it to go to exactly the right depth down into the hole. The reason why is because when you put this lens, you might want to clean it off. When you do put it on, make sure you hold the inside of the housing lens facing up. So that way, when you put it on, you don't have any fingerprints in your light housing when you turn it on later on down the road. So now that's it. The housing's done. Simple. Not that difficult at all. The fun part is getting this wire in through here. Not easy. So yeah, I'm not looking forward to that. I never have a good experience doing that part. Hopefully this time it's easy. So after it's in, I wouldn't necessarily put it in snapping in there because by maneuvering the wires, sometimes it is not easy and you can snap the housing off of the bracket that holds it. Now you can see, I don't know, on the camera here, the little hole is extremely difficult to get the wire through. You only have maybe about 1/16 of a space to get that wire through. Now, if it hits anything like it's doing now, it won't let it go through. So you can see, like, if I had snapped those in, it could definitely damage the housing, which I think they're like $20 online. So if we can stick this part in. Oh, got it. Oh, ah. Okay, so we got one down. Next is the black one. Now, when you stick them in, do that to the opposite side, meaning don't put it through the same side because it's even more difficult to get through. But when we pull the wire tight and we put it down where we want it to be, trying to bend this in there. There it goes. Hey, that wasn't that bad. I've had difficulties where these last me quite some time to get those wires through. I'm not mentally ill or anything. It just takes a long time. Okay, now we got it down. So now with the wires pulled through, we can stick these into position. And not until before then, because by you wiggling it, it will snap those teeth off. And remember, this plastic is very brittle because it's older. Okay, now, next thing's next. Drilling the holes for your class lights. I use 3mm lights. You can use whatever it is you like. Actually, excuse me, they're 2mm, not 3mm. These are special order. I don't think we had these in the beginning of the video, but we're going to add them on later on. You might want to check the different lights, colors. Even though you order one, it's better to check them because they're just so mass produced that sometimes I get different colors. So make sure you check them on a battery before you install them because you can have two different colors. And so that's what we're going to do right now because I want to make sure that they're the correct thing. And I think I said this too on my other videos that when you hook up a prong, this is a prime example, you know, this stuff again is mass produced. You can see that the black is going to the red and the red is going to the black. So be mindful of that when you're doing testing. So that one looks pretty similar. But what we're going to do is we're going to put them both on there at the same time, hold it together, and then we'll test them together so that we can make sure that the lights both look the same. Yes, they both look the same. Now the next thing is decide, is that the color that we want? Do we want it white? Do we want it red? I've seen them green. I've seen them red. I've seen them bright white and cool white, and then also warm white. So that's definitely something you want to decide on. Knowing what we're going to do, I think I'm going to just use these whites so that we can get done with the video, but this would be the time to be mindful of that. The next thing is this housing. When we're going to trim this and alter this so that way it can do what we want it to do, you're going to make sure that this hole is facing the back. So that's the side we're going to be cutting into and notching so that we can include these lights inside of the existing housing, which will be the resistor side is facing up, and then we just drop it in like such. So that's the easy part. There you go. So it'll be as such. We'll make it a little bit bigger so we can fit that down in there. But you can see how much larger the wire is going to be versus the housing. So again, we're going to be altering this housing. And you can see why we're doing these little things first, so that it's all prepped and ready. And then the next thing you know it, you just have 6 wires hanging out the back of that thing that we're just connecting later on. And it moves a lot faster that way. So again, I take the hole, face that in the back, and that's the one I'm going to be cutting. Now, if you're not comfortable with it, you can use pliers, or you can just go hardcore and do it by your hand. It's up to you. If you got a good grip, Kung Fu grip. Okay. Now I've done this a bunch of times, so I'm pretty familiar with how much needs to be cut out, but it looks like it needs a little bit more on that one. And so, this goes in like such. As you can see, let me stick the next one on top. He wants to be a booger, that's fine. I can be a booger back. There we go. Okay, so there's your housing. So now the next part that we're going to be doing is actually sticking or making the holes larger for the wires to fit through, as well as the brackets. This is something that's trial and error. You don't want to get too close to the outside edge because then it'll break and it won't look clean when you're done. So if you're not feeling comfortable with this and you don't have a steady hand, use a drill press and use it in correctly position and then go at it. But if you are doing it a bunch of times, then go for it. But we will be modifying the hole so that it's larger for the wire to go through. Makes me nervous every time I do it, so. And I think this is number 18. I don't remember, I lost track. Okay, here we go. Being a booger. Oops. Goes on the top. I always forget that part. Dang on it. You know, I want to just showcase this on the camera. Was the wires, when you put these in, you can't smush them to the side. So if it helps you, which I should have done this in the beginning, to fold over like an L shape, then fold this one next. If it gets smushed, you can crack the line and then it's not going to work at all. So we don't want to do that. You just drop it down in there and it should go easy peasy. If it doesn't, something's wrong. Yep. Okay, so there you have it. There's both of our, the front end of it. So you got all three of your lights. They're coming out now, pretty straightforward. All of our lights with the resistors already are attached to the lights themselves. They come that way. And so it's a lot faster, speeds up time. You can do all that, your soldering yourself if you like. That's not going to hinder anything. The most important thing to worry about is the spec sheet. And if you want to go on RailPro's website to look at their actual specs per light, you can do that. And then that way you can buy all your own materials and figure out what the voltage is that you need. But that's something to be mindful of. Otherwise, there's no point of doing all this. Everything works at a lot lower capacity. What we're doing is bringing the most power to the table by doing all this, so that we're going to get brighter lights, more sound, longer running power time, and we're going to know that this engine is going to have the exact amount of power going to it that it needs it, as well for the RailPro board to work harmoniously versus work through a bunch of circuitry that causes things to short out, burn out over time. If you remove all those things from the equation, well, the only thing left to go wrong is the actual motor or the RailPro board. So the motor is pretty hardy. So now we're going to dive into taking this thing apart. Now that we got our lights done for both the cab as well as the front of the train. And this is where it gets really, really entailed and detailed. So before we do that, we're going to jump into the next video. But we hope you're enjoying it so far, and thanks again for joining us.